All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the Becker City Council meeting of August 20th to order. If everyone will rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Has everyone had a chance to look over the meeting minutes from July 30th and August 7th? If so, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes, all four as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Troy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any additional items for this evening's meeting? If not, I'll ask for approval of the agenda.
Motion.
No, it's just the ordinance number added.
Gotcha. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented then.
Second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Troy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guest and open forum. This evening, the Public Works Committee asked, we got a little bit of a wonderful summary, and we asked Phil Knudsen to go ahead and give us a summary of the 2019 crack seal project, kind of as a little recap. We thought it was worth everybody hearing it.
All right. Thank you.
Phil.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Just wanted to come before you tonight. A couple months back, you guys allowed us the opportunity to go out and purchase a crack seal melter and bring it on staff and bring that work in-house. So I wanted to give a recap and kind of a attaboy to the street department. They did a good job with the project. We did fail a little bit. We asked for about $68,000 to purchase the melter and the materials and to cover the staff labor to do the work. We spent about $86,000, but we more than doubled the road surface that we covered with the project. So in that regards, there's justification for the money that we spent. We accounted for every dollar that we spent here. A little over $23,000 of the 86 was loaded labor rates. So we took every minute that the guys worked, we accounted for that. And depending on where their benefits were at, tax rates, all of that stuff was loaded into that. So we wanted to account for that. We bought some sprayers for the project. So once you put the crack melt down, we spray it with a soap and water solution to harden it up quick. We didn't want any toilet paper on the streets and blowing around. But we charge the price of those sprayers, even though they're heavy-duty sprayers. They'll last us. There's about $1,000. We'll use them for other treatments in the city. We're putting that into this number as well. So we wanted to give you guys a fair representation and to show comparable numbers in what we're doing. Again, we took on some contract mowing because of this to free up the staff. So over the course of every week, we're saving between 1 and 2 days a week with staff time of mowing 1 or 2 workers between mowing and weed whipping. And if you take that out over the 14 weeks of this season, that's where we're able to pull all that labor back in to condense it to 3 weeks of work to get this work done. The original bid that SEH put in front of us, or their estimate, when you bid this, if I step back a second, when you bid this, you bid it by the pound because you can't tell the size and depth of the crack. So that's how everybody works the numbers. So SEH's quote going into this project was $3.75 a pound to pay for the material and put it on the ground for us. Historically, I pulled back numbers of last year, what we did, and that number was $3.26 a pound. And I did get a bid from Aztec Corporation to do this year's work the way we were doing it, and their bid come back at $2.35 a pound. However, there was no administrative fees, there was no engineering fees in that number. So they were just going off of a spec sheet and the streets that we had called out. So when you factored it in, placing all of our expenses, including labor and the melter in, our staff did it at $2.55 a pound. If we take the melter out, so seasons going forward, we were at $1.27 a pound. So for your guys going forward, we've taken that line item in our operating budget from $115,000 to $30,000. That will afford us a little bit less than a semi-load of material, and we feel we can get a jump on our streets and start. This is the first step in prolonging our streets and getting that maintenance out there. Water kills them, so if we can keep the water from interceding in those cracks, especially in the spring and fall, we feel we can prolong those streets. So all in all, I think it's a great start, and just here to kind of recap that, and thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity to do the work. So.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
So just as a quick summary, we were able to do it cheaper, $1 per pound, but we were able to do 13,000 additional pounds, or, to go extra length. So that was a huge win for us. So
You gotta
thank you,
remember, this is
staff.
our first year, so now they're just getting to use the equipment. They're gonna be
Yeah.
faster and faster.
Yep, so, wonderful. Anyone else for guest and open forum? Seeing no one, we'll go on to committee reports. Budget and finance.
Budget and finance, we were doing the numbers through the end of June, so that puts us at the 50% marker, so pretty easy to, if you're looking at streamline there. So we talked about the financial software purchase a little bit. That item is on our agenda for tonight. We also had Phil and Josh were guests, and so we were talking more about kind of golf and the restaurant and the operations there. And
Personnel.
Personnel, we met with Josh and Phil, and we reviewed and approved the job descriptions for Pebble Creek, which is in your guys' council packet tonight.
Public Works. We went over what Phil had just kind of proofed us. We also reviewed Chapter 3 code in regards to the right-of-way discussion that planning has kicked over to our committee to look at. And we also reviewed the street and trail project being placed up for bid, which is in our packet for this evening as well. Joint Powers Board, I can do that. We reviewed our set financials from the 2020 joint entity meeting, as well as we reviewed all of our financials up to the time period. So that was pretty quick. Park and Rec.
We'll have to wait for Mike. He was gonna do that one. No? We met last night. The pool is open. They stayed right on budget. They even got some extra fixes for a little bit more. The gutters around with the white, once they put the white slide in, it looks a little different, so they did a couple more fixes in there. It's looking real good. The sauna's up and running. 12 people a day approximately is using the Monticello facility while our pool is down. The slide is going to be good for like 8 to 10 years, so we should really think about what we're going to do, because that's going to be, how fast that flies. Swim lessons, we're good there, and we're going to be good all winter. They found some good help. And the Girl Scouts, you remember a while back they wanted a little library out at the BAC. That's up and going and running. The only thing, they need some paint donated because it's Green Bay colors, I guess.
I did see that.
Maybe we could get some paint from somewhere. Other than that, upcoming events, cardio drumming, that is on September 13th. And they're gonna start floating Fridays, August 9th, the 16th, and 23rd. You can float and watch a movie. And they're talking about doing some Vikings games in the pool. That's it.
The only other meeting I did not see listed was the capital investment tour that we all took, which was something new that we just did this year. We went around and we actually got to see things that were in our budget for replacement in 2020 or future projects, and be able to have staff show us right up hand, like, I'm just thinking like the community center with the erosion that's on the outside of the building, being able to actually see it and witness it and be able to determine which project around the city needs to be attended to and which ones don't. So it was nice to do. It was nice to.
I gotta go back to my deal. I forgot one thing. We did approve the HKGI, was approved last night. One of the members wanted to read through it.
Oh.
So we did approve that last night.
And that's also in our packet for tonight. All right, we are going to go to board, committee, and consultant reports. We're going to go to letter B, state auditor's report on the use of body cameras with Chief Balloon. Just then.
Almost wasn't ready for that.
Sorry, we were waiting for Bill.
That's okay.
We were waiting for Bill.
Sure. No problem. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. As you recall, back in October of 2017, the police department accepted the opportunity to use body cameras as part of a tool that we use for recording events and that sort of thing. As part of that process, we are required under statute to go through an audit to ensure compliance with state statute. So earlier this spring, after kind of looking into the process and checking with some other departments, ultimately we determined that the best way to move forward with the auditing process was to hire the Office of the State Auditor for Minnesota and just have them look at things and see where we kind of sit. So we, Greg and I entered into an agreement with the auditor's office for them to come in and actually look at our process and how we do things. I'm actually pleased to announce that we made it through the process very well. We, like other agencies, run a policy, if you will, or have a policy that was recommended to us through the League of Minnesota Cities. And so, you know, we've always operated under that guideline, if you want to call it that, I guess. And we did very well. By the way, just backing up a little bit, so some of the other companies that we could have gone with were charging an arm and a leg for the process to do an audit, or some of them weren't really vetted yet, but they were very cheap. So we kind of decided really one of the best options was to go with the state auditor's office, kind of under the impression that, well, if they say everything is okay, it's probably okay. So through the process, what happens is they actually made an appearance here. We sat down kind of and looked at all the videos that have been created by the police department since the inception, how we store the evidence, how we categorize the evidence. There's a lot of different things that they're looking at. So they randomly pull videos to look at and look, you know, just to kind of see how we're working through our process, if you will. A couple things were identified in the audit. One is the policy that we actually had posted on our website, which is one of the things we are required to do for public inspection. It hadn't been updated. We had the new one, just hadn't been switched on the website. So funny, as we're sitting there, I updated the website as we're sitting there, but he still wanted to put it in a report. So there was that. But the other thing is that the state auditor it's interesting, is that they've had the same issue with every department that they have audited so far. They have a different interpretation of state statute, I think, than everybody else does. Would that be fair to say? I had kind of a interesting discussion with the auditor that was here, because of the state statute that they're referencing on data practices is actually what we follow. We still follow it, it's just worded a different way in our policy, which again is recommended to us by League of Minnesota Cities. So there was a question that they had, and they referenced in the letter to us, identifying that they see for officers to review videos, it's supposed to be authorized by the chief of police or written authorization granted. Our policy already says that in a blanket statement. So we agreed to disagree with the state auditor on that. Their position is just to point it out, they are not an enforcement piece. So they made that, they identified that as something that we disagreed on, but we are able to still move forward without a problem anyway. So the other things that they looked at are determining that the data collected by the body cameras are appropriately classified, we're fine. Data collected by us is appropriately retained and destroyed in accordance with state statute, we're fine. That a record is maintained and available to public, identifying total number of devices owned and maintained, daily record and stuff like that, statistical information which we maintain, we're fine there. Records are maintained showing date and time of recorded information along with classification information, we are fine. And lastly, determine that the data that's stored by our vendor, in this case is Axon, they've been vetted. So the fact that they are approved by the auditor, FBI, NCIC, National Crime Information Center, that sort of thing, we are fine by utilizing them, which we already knew. So in short, we've got a letter from them just indicating that we've passed or gone through our process. Our letter, interestingly, is word for word, verbatim, the same as many of the other agencies that have had the same thing. I've got, like, Brainerd and Burnsville's in my hand right now, and it's identical to theirs. Have they changed anything? They have not, because they're not required to. We pretty much have indicated that we're going to keep ours the same because we feel it's working. We have an independent audit that I do on the officers with their videos anyway, which none of the other agencies do. So every couple of months, I pull random videos to ensure that we are still on the up and up with how we're handling it, that they're actually videoing when they're supposed to be videoing, classifying them the appropriate way, and that sort of thing, and we're not excessively reviewing or videoing things that don't need to be reviewed. One of the things is we're only allowed to review things for a legitimate law enforcement purpose. That is one of the things that came up. Well, we're not reviewing just to review, so there is legitimate purposes that the videos are being reviewed by the officers anyway. So the last step in what has happened here is we signed a letter with the auditor, Greg and I did. They have now sent a copy of this to this many people, of which I have learned they have never responded to any of these yet. So legislators and judges and that sort of thing. So we're in a good spot. As expected, we are following the procedures in accordance with the law, and things went very well. I haven't received the bill yet. We'll see how bad that is, but they said that's going to take some time before it works through the bureaucracy down there, if you will. So I guess our last step then would be just the acceptance of the letter by the city council that we've participated in the process as required by law, and everything seems fine, I guess. I don't know if there's any questions or comments or concerns at this point.
Just had a comment. Having been on the police committee for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, since before we had talked about this, but since really when this started to come to fruition, I'm kind of a civil liberties minded person. I don't think there's any shock about that based off our last council meeting, but so I always look at things, try and look at it from that side of the mind too, and so having been involved with this since day one really, and being able to see this come all the way through, and I've always been real satisfied that we are doing above and beyond there's always especially it seems like today there's always the government's doing are we doing the right thing? There is a need that we do have to to record videos, but are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? Are we storing it? Are we what do we do if and all these different what ifs, and I've always known that that we've done a really good job at this. So just it's nice to see too that that it is important for an auditor, a third party, to look at this, because of course if we're trying to pull shenanigans, of course we're going to look at our own work and go, oh, that's great, But so it is great to have a third party really back that up. Something that we've always said that we're on, we take this very seriously, and we want to do this to the letter of the law, so to speak. But just to do it right, and just to have a third party come in and back that up is really good.
I think what's good for us is the fact that we did in fact choose the state auditor. I don't think anybody's going to question their results likely. So, versus somebody else, like I say, I think we're in a good position now next time to maybe look at some of those other vendors, because we've had the state auditor look at it, and we have created an incredible amount of data as a result of having these. And I would say this to those that don't know, I mean, it's been in a lot of ways a godsend for what we do, because the officers have the ability to go back and look at what they did, document it appropriately, make sure before they go to court they can see what's been done. Even the first month that we had these, we had a complaint that didn't come to the point of a formal complaint, but somebody was going to make a complaint, and once I viewed the video, it was squashed immediately because it was completely a 180 from what was being said about the officer. So it completely would have exonerated the officer had the complaint come through. So it's been a great tool for us, and I know those that have them around us have said the same thing. It's been great. Anything else?
So you want to make a motion for that?
Yes, a motion to accept the findings from the Office of the State Auditor.
With that, I'll make a motion to accept the findings from the Office of the State Auditor for body camera.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Becky. Any other discussion? With none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will go back to the 2019 Street and Trail Improvement Project with Bill Zeiden.
Good evening, and thank you for pushing me second, and sorry for being late.
No worries.
Here to present the resolution 19-49 for the authorization to bid for the 2019 street and trail improvements. The project includes the reconstruction of Parkview Drive from Sherburne Avenue to Forest Drive, which also includes the cul-de-sacs that are adjacent off the road, which are Northway Circle, Park Manor Circle, Frontier Circle, and Julia Lane. The project also includes the improvements to the Third Street Trail, which is over by where the school bus sheds are, follows Third Street up to the north, up to Brenda Boulevard. I guess we're just looking for authorization to go out for bid and approval for the plans and specs for the job. Are there any questions about the project or concerns?
I had some questions that I had sent to Phil yesterday, just in regards to the timing of this. Obviously, it's a 2019 project. We'd be going out for bids. We'd be opening the bids in the middle of September.
Yep.
Do you feel it's going to be, we're going to get an advantageous number having bids that late in the year for a project that we hope to still work this year?
There was some possibility of that. We've worked with the city though, that, talking with Phil and Chris, that we're gonna include in the specs that project closeout could be in the year 2020. I believe it was sometime in July that or June or July that we're picking. That way, if they were to start construction this year, whatever they would start this year, they would have to finish, but if they need to push a portion to it to the next spring season, that would be allowed, and hopefully that would bring in some more favorable bids.
So they could do like dirt work, like remove trees, like grade things, and then in the spring actually come in and then do all the asphalting.
If they do any grading or any dirt work, they would have to stabilize that before fall, and they would have to do that for
that's
winter.
to make sure it doesn't get looking like it's left in a half-baked state.
Yep, exactly. So anything basically that they would open up, they would have to make sure is completed prior to freeze up this year.
It allows them the opportunity to either have work done this fall or early next spring, depending upon their schedules and possible costs associated to it too.
Yes.
So, yeah. That was part of our discussion at Public Works, so.
I'll make a
I have one question.
oh, sorry, before you're done.
Then another question I'd asked too was, what about combining the 2019 with the 2020? Is if we were to wait another month, we have a pretty good idea what our 2020 projects are going to be as well, which would make the package for the 2020 and combined with 2019 bigger. Would that be advantageous to bid all of those? Would we get a better bid by combining them all together and having the work all done in 2020?
It could definitely help out, yeah, with the scale of economy with the project. If it's a lot larger, yes, adding a larger project for next year could be, I guess, could be better. We might get a little bit even better costs if we were to do that, just because it would be pushing the work off until next year. If we were to do that, I wouldn't assume any of the work would be constructed this year then, if we were to push this off another month. So everything would be pushed to 2020 season then.
Staff recommendation on that, or?
No, if you could use the podium, please. I think, are you looking at just the cost-wise? Because we can't cover everything from 2019 that's going to be bidded here. We have to wait for 2020 to pay for the full.
Well, I'm saying if there's also 2020 projects, if we combine them all, with these ones, the 2019 with the 2020, bid that all as one project, we'd have to wait a little later, but
I don't think what we have slated for 2020, we would have funding for, because we didn't have enough for 19. So all that would move forward. Go ahead, Phil, sorry.
To your comment, we weren't sure where the budget was actually coming in or where our CIP was coming in, so we didn't want to make any assumptions if we were doing anything in 2020, and if so, what that work would be. So since we had this done, we don't want to do this often, but we can kill the bids if we don't get them in a favorable condition for us. So we could combine that in the spring if what we're seeing back is, Bill's not recommending it, or SEH isn't finding that they're of value to us. And at that point, we would know where our budget is for 2020 and where our CIP or what it's looking like. So we didn't want to take an assumption and say, we're going to do this in 2020, not knowing where you guys are setting the budget, so.
That's why I was thinking if we waited another month, which I know would kill it for this year for sure, if we said, let's delay another month, that we're all in for 2020 at that point. But, I mean, you never know how bids are gonna go, I understand that too. Is it something you see, is it a 25% you would possibly see? Or, I mean, are we talking about, like if we combine these projects together, I mean, what kind of,
It might go up.
use your crystal ball, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, that's kind of why, when we discussed earlier that if we were to allow this one to stretch into 2020, if we were restricting this one to solely 2019, then it would have made a big difference, but with allowing this one to go into 2020, it might not be too much of a difference. We also could see some. It's kind of hard to crystal ball that one with, like you guys said too, it's, who knows exactly what we're doing next year, if we are gonna any. So, depending on how large the project could get, yes, it could help a lot more, but
I think leaving
tough
it
to
open
tell.
to the 20, that they don't have to
Yeah.
finish, then it's not gonna be, the price isn't gonna be as bad, because
yeah.
they're not gonna have to jam it to get it done.
Because this is supposed to be a 2019 project, and we don't have enough capital to cover what we knew would go out to bid. So we have to wait for the
It's already
2020
split it.
funding
Okay.
in order to pay for this whole project. So that's why it's being worked now. If we wait and put on more work, we may not have capital to even cover that.
Okay.
If you're looking for a recommendation, staff would recommend that we get the bids right now, review them, see where they're at, and make the decision at that time. So it may be favorable for us, but that way we know we've got it in our hand and we can make the decision. So that would be our recommendation.
No further questions.
Sure?
Okay. If I think of any, I'll let you know.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 1940-49.
I'll second.
Motion from Troy, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Finance software purchase request. Connie Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So back in 2016, we had budgeted for new software, and with the leadership changes, it just wasn't a good time to do that. But now proposals, we've seen a couple proposals, and we are excited about the potential for a new software for accounting. We've included several staff members, of course, Greg, and also Rob Zills in on these demonstrations. And we have made a choice on what software we would like to implement in 2020. But because of our timelines and the software conversion process, we would like to get a start on this so we have a clean cutoff at 2020 on January 1st, 2020. So that means we would need to start by the end of August, early September with this conversion process. So with the proposals, of course, we can't wait to pay for all of it in 2020. We have to pay a little bit as we go on with this conversion. So tonight there's a resolution for you to look at on letting us go into that agreement with Civic Systems to start that whole conversion process. And about half of the funds would be paid up front, which equates to, it'll be up to $45,000, but it'll probably be lower than that. And so if you have any questions, a motion and a second to approve resolution 1948 for the purchase of finance software, and allowing us to go into that agreement with Civic Systems would be appreciated.
So Connie, by doing this, it actually locks us into the 2020 capital request for $90,000.
It does.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, that's, this would obviously be a exception. This isn't something in any department, this isn't something we typically have done. You know, I mean, being that the conversion process, obviously, we have our old software, which is in an old format, we have our new software, and then you're gonna want, probably for like the last couple months, what you would do is you actually would run both pieces of software and make sure that okay, we're gonna, instead of doing entry into one, we would do entry into both, and then you're making sure that they spit out the same numbers back to you. Not something we would wanna do mid-year, our fiscal year is January 1st. Starts January 1st, so not something we want to do really mid-year. It would be, like you said, this would lock us in to say, yes, for sure, we would be doing this CIP item for 2020. Otherwise, I mean, really, the other option is that we would wait another year. I mean, that's because we wouldn't, I don't think, do it mid-year, so.
Yeah, it'd be really difficult with our accounting periods and our timelines. It would be really difficult to do it mid-year. And it takes a good 4 months to get that conversion in place and to do those, where we're doubling up with Banyan versus Civic Systems and making sure everything's in line and that the conversion process is a good, a good process, or that everything equals.
Can you maybe explain, on budget and finance, we've talked about this, but everybody else doesn't necessarily have the luxury of this. Can we talk about maybe some of the limitations that are our existing software, which I believe we originally purchased in 1996, if I recall.
Correct.
We've done newer versions of it, but we've had it for quite a while, but it is limited and to the point where they can't grow, they can't offer us what we've asked for, but can you talk about maybe some of the specifics and why we want to go a different direction with software?
Sure. Most important, reporting. Having our department heads being able to go in there and see where they are in the budget process is almost impossible. I mean, it just is a hard, we have to literally go in there and I'll have to print out reports and send them off to the department heads, which takes up quite a bit of my time. We've also seen some quirks with some of the, like we have to go to Windows 10. It's not working well with Windows 10. There are, bringing payments over from PSN, we get different funky things that happen that we have to fix internally, so that takes time. I've seen Banyan drop different items where I've had to re-enter them in and you don't know why. I mean, there's just, it's not fitting our need. Plus, we have a diverse organization. I mean, we're not just a small, 50 or under employees, and, we have our public works, we have our, we have a golf course, we have a community center, we have several components that it's almost too big for Banyan, almost too much to put into that system. I think it works for a smaller city with not a lot of stuff going on. So it's kind of where we are, and we're just seeing that we're really outgrowing it, and we're finding things that we're having to put a lot of timing into the work that we shouldn't have to do.
So Connie, my question would be, knowing that we are budgeting $90K for 2020, you're going to need $45,000 of that 90 now. You've indicated in your memo, funds will be taken from the administrative revolving capital account for the 45 to be for 19. What project is in that revolving capital account that's going to be pushed or removed or set aside to be implemented for 2020 so we can use that money now?
Go ahead.
Great question. Short answer is we will not be foregoing another project. Remember, we budgeted for this probably 2 or 3 budget cycles previous, so the money's already there. It's been secured, and what we're thinking is, yes, there's a logical cut point, January 1st. It does take 3 or 4 months, so in our opinion, it does make sense to do this work between now and the end of the year. Rick, you had talked about running those 2 systems parallel, so we make sure that they tie out. So it does make sense, but we are not suggesting to forego another project in favor of this one.
We do have the funds in that.
I remember discussing it a couple of years ago when Member Keller was here. She was a huge advocate for it, but we just couldn't financially, or something came up, I don't remember.
That was right when we were switching staff too, and we didn't want to
Oh,
bring in a
yes.
new
Oh, your new
software with new,
auditor
yeah.
and-
The
Yes,
change in
that's right.
leadership, I mean, I was not at that point ready to take that on with the leadership
Sure.
change too.
Okay.
So it wasn't financial, it was more leadership change.
Thank you for the jog down memory lane. Thank you. Any other questions for Connie? Otherwise, we could entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to, there we go, to approve Resolution 1948 for the purchase of financial software and allowing Connie Robinson to enter into an agreement for such purchase with Civic Systems.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
All right, acceptance of the master plan for a Becker Parks Recreation and Athletic Facility. Josh Kua.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council. Before you tonight, we're looking for an acceptance of the master plan for Becker Parks Recreation and Athletic Facilities. Tonight with us, we have Kevin Clark from HKGI, the group that helped participate in the preparation of this study. He's going to say a few words, and then I'll circle back with you.
Thank you very much for having me. So the plan that was in your packets has been developed over the past year and a little bit longer, working with staff, listening to the public. We've had approximately 1,200 points of input with the public through surveys and open house and some pop-up events that have happened, as well as some on-site analysis where we've gone out, had a chance to take a look at all the parks that are here. Sort of in the why you do a project like this, parks represent a significant investment for this community. It helps the city understand the needs and desires of the community, as well as when community members are calling you up and saying, hey, I'd love to see this. You've got some more background to be able to say, yeah, that fits with kind of where we're headed, or no, it doesn't, or maybe we need to explore more. It also helps with the long-term thinking. So with a lot of projects like trails, those aren't something that you can just put in a whole system overnight. And having that plan in place helps you start to think about a long-term, taking off bite-sized pieces year after year, so that as you look back, you've got this kind of system that's been built incrementally. It also makes sure that the city's resources, time and money and effort are well spent, as well as helps the city leverage for grants, as well as working with other entities. So if the state or the county has projects going on, this is another piece of documentation for the city. They can say, you can say, we've talked about this, we've thought about this. It's important that some of these elements are included in projects coming up. So the plan addresses things at two levels, kind of that system level that we were talking about, the bigger, how does the whole thing function together, as well as on a park by park basis, where we've looked and identified needs, said, what are the safety issues, what are the issues where there's low-hanging fruit, things that could be fixed easily or brought in that community members really like. And then identifying kind of what would be practical in terms of, what are the higher demand issues, what are some of those issues that maybe are less immediate, as well as trying to give you all an idea of a general order of magnitude on costs, so that as budgeting happens, you're able to do that with a little more information. So this plan would not be, so there are a number of different projects that are listed in here. By approving the plan, you're not approving any one of those single projects. You're not approving, okay, we're going through this laundry list and all of them are now approved. What it does is it allows staff to start pursuing projects. All of those will come back in front of you anytime there's an individual project that comes up. It becomes a working document for staff that helps give them direction, responding to needs, improving some of the recreation things, some of the park things, and implementing some of the new ideas and the more of the long-term ideas. And then also, again, having that resource to be able to pursue grants and other funding as well. So thank you once again for the opportunity to work on it. And I think between Josh and myself, we can hopefully answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Kevin. I think you hit the nail on the head by we're accepting the master plan that your company had completed. We're not accepting to implement every idea that's in there, but it's more of a guidance source. Good. Josh, did you have anything left for us?
Everything I had in the request for council action was pretty much touched on there, right? So we just wanted any opportunity that you would need for further questions. It has been, as Kevin said, over a year-long process with lots of stakeholders, meetings, community input, and our city staff, as well as Parks and Rec Commission, who formally unanimously accepted it last night. Feel like it's a really wonderful product for all the reasons that Kevin had mentioned. Gives us a good roadmap. Also, just reiterating, accepting it is not accepting everything within. They'd still come in front of you for consideration before anything would move forward. So if there aren't any questions, we'd just be looking for a motion and second to accept the master plan for Becker Parks, Recreation, and Athletic Facilities.
I make a motion, we accept the plan.
I'll second it.
Motion from Mike, second from Troy. Any other discussion?
I have one question. School was going to pick up part of this tab. This is before your time.
If I may, Madam Mayor, City Council, yes, they had agreed to that. We've not invoiced them yet. The acceptance of this will be the trigger for the acceptance. We've had a leadership change at the school, so we'll be talking with those folks and reminding them of what the agreement was. So, and I'll reach out directly.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Chapter 5, Alcoholic Beverages Licensing and Regulations Update. Ms. Bleasy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as requested, staff has been reviewing each chapter of the city code book as time allows. Chief Balloon and I did recently sit down and review chapter 5 of the which would be the alcohol beverages licensing and regulation. As a reminder to council, we did review and update this chapter in February of 2018. So following the most recent review, there were 2 recommendations for change that we would make. Section 5.16, applications for renewal. Staff would recommend changing 90 days to 45 days to more accurately reflect our actual practices. And then section 5.21A, staff would recommend removing item A and combining it with the main paragraph. It just really cleans up the language of that section, still stating the same thing. We did bring this to Planning Commission and they recommended approval of the changes. And so I would ask for the 2 motions to approve ordinance 215 and then to approve the summary for publication. So I'll take any questions.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 215, second series, an ordinance amending chapter 5, sections 5.16 and 5.21.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 215, second series summary for publication purposes.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Julie. Administrator and staff reports. Supplemental agreement for Business Park Phase 1 preliminary engineering report and environmental narrative services, otherwise known as the NEPA process.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Poole.
much. Great
I've been
lead-in.
practicing that one all week.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. As I listened to the meeting transpire this evening, it occurred to me we've got one plan that we had just approved, Park and Rec and Trails. So I want to say one thing about kind of what we're doing here as a city and how it works, and that is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a guide for ourselves. The tendency is we study things and then we get a plan together, and then criticism is we never do anything with that plan. The one Josh just had approved by the city council, even though you're not approving that entire plan and the execution of it, what we will do then is we'll bring back bits and pieces of that over time, and that's how we make that plan come to life. So why is that important to my presentation? Because I too have a plan, a study that I need to have the city council weigh in on this evening, and it's for our business park build-out. If you'll remember, we've already done a feasibility report for that business park build-out. The next step in that process is a preliminary engineering report, PER for short, and also environmental narrative services report, which just basically takes a look at the environmental impacts. So that kind of sets it up. We are going to contract with SCH to perform this work. Again, it's the next step in the evolution of bringing that build-out to life. So what I'm proposing this evening is a supplementary contract with SCH to perform this work. It's a cost not to exceed $39,975, but I would also mention to the City Council that we do have a matching grant to the amount of 50% of that almost $40,000. So, and that's the Initiative Foundation, who has supported Becker and Sherburne County greatly, especially the last 3 or 4 years. Point being is, I would ask the City Council to take action on this and allow us to enter into that supplemental agreement with SCH.
Do you want to talk about what the NEPA project, like what it entails, like how it's important to the process?
Sure. So the importance is, okay, so we've got a business park and it needs improvements. I always kind of cast it in the shadow of this coal transition and kind of what's going on in the utility market. Small town, small infrastructure. What we need to do is invest in our infrastructure to accommodate these businesses. Businesses like Northern Metal Recycling. We're talking with Google about the sale of a lot. Some other local businesses that want to expand. What we need to do is we need to meet that need and meet that demand. What this does is it takes that feasibility report, I mean, is it possible to do, and it adds a lot of meat and potatoes to it. So how big are the pipes? How deep are the pipes? How long are the pipes? How does the water flow to and from? How does the sanitary sewer get back to where it needs to go? How does the storm sewer work? So it's a lot of engineering. I could go on all afternoon about it. The point being just a lot of engineering and how all of that infrastructure will work together to meet the needs of our business park.
Excuse me, I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental agreement letter with SCH to complete the Business Park Phase 1 PER and NEPA.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Troy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, City Council, please take note, we have a revised consent agenda this evening. Item number 1 is a hiring and termination report for the Becker Community Center. Item number 2, and this has rolled up through our Personnel Committee job descriptions for our kitchen supervisor, hospitality supervisor, and city planner. Item number 3 is renewal for a postage meter lease. Item number 4, declaring parcel 60-474-0420 as surplus and ordering its disposal. And I'm just going to say one quick little word about that lot. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to determine property that the city holds that could be sold to the general public and put on the tax rolls. This is a lot out in Autumn Ridge that we've held for a number of years. We've worked with our staff internally, come to the conclusion there's no need for us to hang on to that property. The housing market is right for a sale, so that's what we want to do. Get this thing sold, get somebody a lot that they want to build a house on and get back on the tax rolls. Item number 4, domestic and industrial headworks infrared heating project agreement with SEH. And then item number 6 is the revised version, hiring and termination report for Becker Pebble Creek Golf Club. So with that, I can try to answer questions. Otherwise, a motion to adopt the consent agenda would be appreciated.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda?
I'll second it.
Motion from Mike, second from Troy. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Payment of the bills.
Make a motion. We pay the bills?
Motion from Troy, second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Troy, second from Rick. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:52.